We're going on assignment with the Voice of America. Hey everybody, I'm Imran Siddiqui here with Alex Villarreal.
Today on assignment, you know him on Skype, but this time we've got him in studio. Scott Bobb, one of our lead correspondents on the war in Syria.
Then a look back to 2001 and the tragic events of September 11th, as reported on VOA.
And we'll throw in a little basketball diplomacy as seen between the U.S. and North Korea.
The lights are on and the cameras are rolling, so let's go on assignment.
VOA's Scott Bobb is our Jerusalem-based correspondent. Now, with civil war ongoing in Syria, Scott has been one of VOA's journalists on the front lines. But Imran, you actually got to talk with him recently here in Washington.
That's correct, Alex. Scott and we sat down to discuss what he's seen in Syria, how he's covered the conflict, and what it means to be a wartime reporter. Here's what he said.
Bab al-Salama camp near Syria's border with Turkey. ABDULHAMID Assad arrived from Aleppo several months ago with his extended family of fighters with the Syrian rebels. They fled because they ran out of bullets. Assad acknowledges that the rebels have suffered reversals on the battlefield lately. As a result, new arms are welcome.
Of course the weapons will make a difference. We are just waiting for them. I have 70 fighters here just waiting to go, and hundreds more waiting in Aleppo.
Scott, how's it been like covering the events in Syria?
The conflict has evolved. It's gotten bloodier, more deadly, and nastier. When I first went in August of last year, right when the bombings of civilian populations began, there were maybe a few thousand displaced people at the border with Turkey waiting to cross for space in the refugee camps. A few thousand. When I went back in June of this year, not a year later, that camp had grown to 100,000. This has been the same everywhere along the border, whether it's Lebanon, Jordan, or even Iraq. And so this is one. The degree of suffering and trauma is much, much greater. You now have families coming across with no men over the age of 12 because even boys of 12 years old are being killed because they're suspected of being rebel sympathizers.
Were there any journalists around when the chemical attack took place?
Well, there were citizen journalists, Syrians, who have been courageously going out and filming with their cell phones events and who have caught a lot of this violence and tragedy on their phones. Otherwise, the world would not really be aware of it. But no professional and no foreign journalists were in that area, to my knowledge. And of course, they weren't allowed there because it was near Damascus. It's very difficult for journalists who come through on the rebel side to get there. Some have, but it's very dangerous and it's so much more dangerous now that there are very few who get that far.
How do you respond to those who criticize the U.S. not taking any action compared to those who say, for God's sakes, take an action?
Well, among the rebels, I have not heard criticism of the community for taking action. It's very much, we want at least a no-fly zone or a buffer zone along the border where we won't be attacked, a place of safety and refuge, which they're not getting. It's in America and outside of Syria that you hear those voices, and you try to, sometimes even though I tell them I'm not the ambassador, so but I try to explain why the problem, for the fact that Afghanistan and Iraq are so fresh in many people's minds, the fact that many Americans are concerned with the budget deficit and the expense and the risk of becoming deeply involved, of retaliation, but they still say, well, but how can you let this happen? Can't you do something? And so you say, well, what I say is, well, I didn't think it would go on this long.
And how do you do it? I mean, you film it yourself and you're taking a shot and you got rockets flying back and forth. How does that work?
Well, if rockets start flying, the first thing you do is get as safe as you can be, take cover. As everyone says, no story is worth dying for. But the way we tend to work in this war zone is two of us go in. I go in, I shoot often, but when you go in like that, usually I go in with a cameraman. There are about several reasons for that. One, we can watch each other's back. because when you're filming, you really can't see anything except what's in the lens. Two, we're faster, because I can be writing a script and working on it while the camera guy, who's also the editor, is isolating, doing the rough cut and isolating the sound from the interviews. And the third one is that while the cameraman or camera person is shooting the B-roll, the extra scenes, and so forth, I'm talking to people and getting more information, and because the camera isn't there, they're often much more honest and forthcoming. So we find that we're about 3 times more productive when we're 2 people than when we're just 1.
Would you go back and be a part of the coverage again after seeing what you've seen?
Yes, I'd go back. I would have to be much more careful, and I have an agreement with my bosses that I make the call because I'm on the ground. I'm asking and informing myself all along the way with everybody, whether it's rebels, whether it's civilians, whether people I know, contacts. And again, you have to be prepared to abort a mission and get out at a moment's notice, and that's happened a couple of times.
And our thanks again to VOA correspondent Scott Bob for his excellent reporting.
Now, from current tragedy, we turn to tragedy of the past. It was the deadliest terrorist attack ever on U.S. soil, September 11th, 2001, when al-Qaeda hijackers flew planes into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York and the Pentagon outside Washington.
A 4th plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania, as we well know, and 12 years later, that day still resonates across the world, including here at VOA.
Reporters who were here on that Tuesday will never forget covering it. I talked with 2 of our veteran journalists, national correspondent Jim Malone and radio anchor and reporter Sarah Williams, about what they remember.
This is a special report. Been a series of apparent terrorist attacks in New York and Washington. During the next hour, Sarah Williams. Stay with us here on VOA News Now.
Go to the Trade Center.
I was in the VOA newsroom. I was watching it with a colleague. The first plane had gone into one of the towers. I said to my colleague, I believe it's terrorism and I think bin Laden is behind it.
I was in an office here on the 1st floor, and then I heard a report, a plane has hit the World Trade Center. I think I went to look at a television, and we saw the 2nd plane hit, and then I think everyone realized this was a terrorist attack.
I saw the plane hit the building.
We heard a big bang.
Now, both of you being journalists and bearing this responsibility of providing information to the world in a time like this when there's so much chaos going on, and then of course this city also being part of the attacks with the Pentagon being hit. What was that like for you, not really knowing what was coming next?
Just leaving the VOA headquarters here in Washington, getting to my home on the subway system, there was this sense of nervousness, of shock, fear.
I just think there's going to be another explosion.
In the newsroom, there was really like chaos or pandemonium. Everyone was scrambling around trying to figure out what was going on.
And Sarah, you mentioned earlier going outside in this city and how it just was a feeling like no other. Can you describe that?
Yes, that was later in the day. That would have been probably in the late afternoon. And I walked outside the building, and it was just eerie how quiet it was. There were no planes flying over. It was sort of like, I used to say, a snow day without snow, because it was an eerie, real, almost haunted feeling.
And Jim, you went to New York. You had a bit of a delay trying to get there. If you can describe what it was like getting there and then what you encountered when you did arrive at Ground Zero.
These scenes come rushing back in my mind. Ambulances would roll by slowly. Obviously, there were victims inside. And on the streets of New York, people would stop, they'd put their hands over their hearts, they'd take off their hats, and there was just an eerie silence. The actual site, getting close to Ground Zero, was something like out of a Hollywood movie, with the ash in the air, people walking around with masks on so they wouldn't breathe it in.
You're covering this as journalists, but you're still citizens. So how do you balance those two responsibilities?
Well, I know that there were some colleagues here, two of them. One colleague, her husband, worked at the State Department. Earlier on in the day, there were rumors the State Department had been hit. It wasn't, but she was very concerned about him. Another colleague of mine, her husband worked in the Pentagon. Fortunately, he was fine. But there were a lot of concerns about what was really going on. And then as the day went on, we heard a fourth plane had crashed in Pennsylvania. And you just feel so sorry for people for what had happened. You just feel so sort of helpless, really.
I spent more than a week in New York, going to Ground Zero every day, interviewing people, survivors. One of the toughest days was a group of family members had gathered with pictures of their loved ones, family members who were missing. And they wanted to speak to the news media and to try to get the word out that their brother, their daughter, their son was missing, and they have the picture.
Where were you? I know if my wife is alive. I was on 82. 82? Yeah.
Many of these folks were very emotional. They were crying. Now, as journalists, we all kind of learn to sort of subvert that a bit. We have to do our jobs. We have to report the story, take account of what people say, and report it. So you build up a little immunity to that, frankly. But I knew I was close to breaking when I was interviewing a man in a very simple voice. He was talking about his missing stepdaughter. And you just never know when it's going to hit you. And what happened was his voice caught for just a second. And I almost lost it at that point.
Most Americans, unless they had been soldiers, are not familiar with seeing civilians die like that. That's something that Americans should be aware of, that you cannot take your safety for granted.
And again, Sarah Williams and Jim Malone, two of the many VOA journalists who covered 9/11. And Ron, you know, it's incredible how seeing those images so many years later now, it still almost feels like it happened just yesterday. I can remember exactly where I was in that moment watching the Twin Towers, sitting in class, and none of us really realizing at all at that moment how much just this one singular event would have such a huge impact on the rest of our lives.
It was surreal. I remember I was in Pakistan and we were filming a TV program, and we had these big screens where CNN was playing, you know, what was being played, and it was just shocking. Everyone just dropped everything and we couldn't work, just had to watch what was going on.
Yeah, remarkable.
Incredible.
Yeah.
We're taking a break now, but coming up, changing of the guard at the U.S. Federal Reserve. You're watching On Assignment.
In just months, the U.S. government is set to say bye-bye to Ben Bernanke. The economist who guided the country through the worst financial crisis in decades is expected to step down early next year. But who will replace him as chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve? Here to talk about the importance of the Fed is VOA's Jim Randall. Now, Jim, before we get into prospects for Bernanke's replacement, let's talk about what the Fed actually is and what it does.
Well, they have two goals. One is to try to maximize employment, to get people jobs, to get the economy going so that people can work, they make money, they can pay taxes, they can keep going. The other thing is to try to keep inflation from getting completely out of control. Inflation, you have more dollars chasing the same number of goods, your money is worth less, and at some points it becomes worthless. You've got to keep inflation under control. So they have those two goals, which are sometimes contradictory, but inflation's pretty modest right now, and unemployment is a big problem.
Now, there's been talk about a number of different possible candidates for this role as the new chairman of the Fed. Many were thinking that Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, would possibly be the top contender, but now he's withdrawn himself from selection. So who are we seeing now who's rising up?
The next most obvious candidate would be Janet Yellen. She's a very respected economist. She's the current #2 person at the Fed. She ran the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco for a long time. And maybe most important of all, Yellen, more than almost anybody else, recognized the recent financial crisis for what it was, how serious it was, what caused it, what to do about it. She gets a lot of credit for being smart on that.
And why should an international audience be paying attention to this selection?
The United States is the world's biggest economy. Countries all over the world sell stuff to us. And if there's a healthy, robust U.S. economy, it's easier to sell stuff. And that means jobs for people in Bangalore or Indonesia or Mexico or wherever.
Absolutely. Now, if you could, put your sort of spin on things, what would you tell people is the primary focus of this selection? What are they looking for in a candidate?
Well, I think what they're looking for is somebody who can get through a nomination process without too much problem, because the president will say, this is my candidate, and then the Senate will say yes or no. Whether that person gets hired or not. So it's got to be somebody who can get through the Senate. Larry Summers apparently thought that he was not going to be able to make it. He had annoyed some Democrats, the president's own party, and the Republicans are, sharpening their knives for anybody the president nominates. So that was going nowhere. So they're looking, and Yellen, I think, probably would be easier to confirm, and she's very respected. And she's a woman. She'll be the first woman to hold this position. Yeah. That's not going to hurt her chances it's got to help her chances for being confirmed.
That would be a historical moment, which definitely we'd all like to see. Well, Jim, we always appreciate having you on for your insights into business and the economy. Again, Jim Randall, our VOA economics editor. Thanks for joining us. All right, well, it's time for another break. On the other side, a look at a strange and unusual friendship. The basketball star and the dictator. You're watching On Assignment.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un hosted former U.S. basketball player Dennis Rodman recently for the second time, furthering what has become one of the world's more unusual relationships.
Rodman says his trips to North Korea are missions of basketball diplomacy, but he has not been able to help free American tour operator Kenneth Bae, who was arrested in North Korea in November and convicted of trying to topple the government.
U.S. officials have been urging North Korea to release Bae on humanitarian grounds. VOA Seoul correspondent Daniel Scharf talked about this and Dennis Rodman's trip with On Assignment's Philip Alexio. Let's take a look.
Daniel Scharf in South Korea. Can you explain basically what is going on with this relationship between Dennis Rodman and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un?
The first time he went there for a documentary film that he was making about doing a basketball tournament in North Korea. So it was very much a commercial event. But as part of that, he ended up meeting with Kim Jong-un, who is known to be a basketball fan, as was his father. And they seemed to form a fairly tight relationship. And he was invited back to North Korea, and he did go back and managed to have once again, one-on-one time with this very mysterious and young leader, the first American to do so. And so he says they're friends, and he's been invited to not only go back again with some other American basketball players for a exhibition game with North Korean players, but he's also apparently, according to him, he's been invited to help Kim Jong-un to write a book and to potentially even coach the Olympic basketball team for North Korea. So they seem to have formed quite a tight bond.
They said, Dennis, we'd love for you to do one thing for us. For the next Olympics, can you train our Olympic team to compete in the Olympics for the next 3 years? I'm like, okay, I will.
Well, what about the South Koreans? They certainly are fully aware of what it's like in the North. What are they seeing when they see Dennis Rodman chumming it up with Kim Jong-un?
I think the South Koreans are looking at Dennis Rodman more or less like we look at Dennis Rodman in the United States and in the West in general. He's a celebrity. He's known for controversy, for getting into the newspapers. He's there to be a self-promoter. At the same time, there, of course, is some hope that potentially some goodwill could come out of this. But in general, I think that certainly the officials here and most people don't take Dennis Rodman that seriously, because he doesn't show himself to be a very serious person. And we saw that by the way he very quickly dropped the case of the jailed Korean American Kenneth Bae.
Yes, I don't want to talk about politics because if I do that, it's a whole different ballgame. I wasn't going over there to try to rescue somebody. I'm trying to do one thing, open doors.
So obviously, you know, human rights, the issue of Kenneth Bae, imprisoned Korean American in North Korea, means very little to Dennis Rodman at this point. And he lost what little credibility he had started to develop on the issue of human rights in North Korea. But some information is coming from his visits and from his meetings with Kim Jong-un. We found out that he has a daughter, and he found out the name of his daughter. That was something that was not known before. It's a very mysterious country, so it's possible that some information may come out of this relationship. Of course, with an exhibition game between American and North Korean players, you know, some goodwill could come out of that. North Koreans the public may decide to look on Americans as not being that bad if they see some nice American sportsmen coming into their country and playing a game. But this is also going to be used for propaganda purposes by Pyongyang. So we'll just have to wait and see exactly how far this relationship goes and what can come out of it.
Our thanks to Daniel Scharf. And it might not come in the form of Dennis Rodman, but there's still hope for Kenneth Bae. All 6 Americans North Korea has detained since 2009 have been allowed to return home before serving their full sentences.
Right, and we will certainly be following Bae's situation closely. Well, moving on, summer is ending in the Northern Hemisphere, which means many people will be turning to recreational activity indoors, even motor racing, but not with cars, with go-karts.
Okay, but hang in there. Don't be fooled. These karts may be small, but they make for some big fun. And naturally, our VOA adventure reporter Arash Arabasadi went to find out more. Let's take a look.
They're fast, really fast.
They're about 50 miles per hour, if you can get them up to that.
That's around 80 kilometers per hour, and for most recreational racers, this is as good as it gets.
And this is real racing, not for the faint of heart. It is hands down some of the coolest stuff you can do in Maryland.
And anything 4 wheels that goes fast, I'm up for it.
The karts racing around this indoor track are not your traditional homemade go-kart.
You don't have a lawnmower engine. We've got a 20 horsepower electric motor on them. When you take away the emissions issue, you can be inside, and that's awesome.
Because inside means air conditioning, and also that weather is a non-factor. But aside from that, these things move.
You're one with the cart. You feel the G-forces in a turn. You get pushed back in the seat. Forget your Porsches, forget your Ferraris, forget your Lambos. These carts will whoop them around a corner. It's great.
Not to worry if crazy is not your ideal speed. The designers of these machines had everyone in mind.
This kart track is for ages 8 to 80. So it doesn't matter who you are. As long as you're not pregnant or have a heart issue, you're good to go.
Like most action sports, it really comes down to one thing.
Adrenaline, speed, you should definitely try it. It's awesome.
A single race will run you $20. That's about 10 minutes on the track. And remember, they say this is something not to be tried at home.
No. Don't tell the cops, but I do it on the streets too. No, I'm just kidding.
Which may be reason enough to buckle up. From AUTOBAHN Indoor Speedway in Jessup, Maryland, Arash Arabasadi for VOA News.
Wow, so I'm thinking that we could really use some of those carts here in this building. What do you think?
Yeah, perfect for moving from one studio to another or going to your makeup room.
Absolutely, we'll never be late again.
Fantastic. Next week, we'll bring you more from our reporters covering stories from Kashmir to Maryland.
And of course, all our episodes can be found anytime on voanews.com, Facebook, and of course, YouTube.
Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye from all of us at On Assignment.